Alright, what's up guys, how's it going? I've been a little bit sick lately, so I haven't worked on this thing for like a week, so I'm gonna get started today. Hopefully get the fuel pump and everything situated and possibly even started today, so that's the goal. Let's do it. Alright guys, so I was getting ready to go, started working on everything, and then I could not find the nuts or the electrical fittings that went onto these that came with the package. Couldn't find it anywhere. So I was a little bit frustrated trying to find it, so I just decided I was going to run to the store and quick buy the stuff. The one size is a M6x1 nut, and the other one was a M5x0.8. Got those, got the fittings, everything's good. And I started pulling out my other fittings that I bought. This is for the in-feed, and then I was going to find the one for the out-feed here. Then I was looking around and looking around and looking around, and then I decided to check my eBay, where I bought it from, and turns out the thing never even showed up. So it was supposed to be here 14 days ago, and I never even checked the shipping. It had the first scan when they shipped it, like they made the label and they had the first scan, and then there was nothing after that. I have another one coming hopefully in a few days. Annoying. I talked about some of this stuff before, but I picked up some wire loom. I got some hose clamps, regulator filter, pump, a relay. I'm probably not going to use this thing. I'll probably use, because I'm going to use some bigger wire than this comes with. This is a 40 amp relay, and I'm going to use some bigger wire. So I'm going to use some of these spade terminal things here, some zip ties to hold my bumper on, and then this thing right here, which is going to come out of the regulator to go to the line. So I did get suckered for these things that are kind of irrelevant, but 2 for 5. Hey, so let's get started. Okay, so I'm also going to be running some 8-gauge wire to the fuel pump. 8-gauge might be a little excessive, but I feel like I want to use it, and I have it laying around. So this is all 8-gauge. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to pull some of this here. This is all 8-gauge. This is all 8-gauge. This was all out of one of my big vans that I built a while back. So I think these strands are long enough. This is what I was using for the woofers before, so I think this is what I'm using for the fuel pump, because these are long enough. If not, I do have some 500-foot rolls. This is a 500-foot roll. This is a 500-foot roll. So I got enough. I think that should get me to the fuel pump from the battery. So let's pull this junk out of here and see if we got enough length. Just a funny little tidbit here. All these wires here with all the terminals on the end, these were just the positives that went to the amps in that van that I built. They're just the positives, not including any of the grounds that went to the amps. So there was 32 positives and 32 negatives going to all the amps. All right, so here are those 2 strands of wire. Brought them up, over around here, down, back. They go this far, so that should be plenty long enough to get me to the fuel pump. So yeah, a lot of you guys that have been with me for a while, you remember that van. If you're new, that van had 16 18s in it, 8 4500 watt amps, and 19 batteries. If you're at all interested in seeing any more of that van, you can go back and check out some of the older videos, or leave a comment, let me know. Maybe I could put together a video with some pictures or something like that. But let's get back to business. So first thing I'm doing is using the stock sending unit, removed the factory fuel pump. Here's the wires that were cut there. I did snip the wires up here. I'm gonna be using these wires now to activate the relay instead of using these to power the fuel pump. So I'm gonna use these to power the relay and then use the 8-gauge wire to run the pump. So I did run this line down here. So this is gonna draw the, throw this thing back in, and should be good. I'll be able to use the stock gauge sending unit. Hopefully that worked. Just gonna take the sending unit, stick it back in. It's factory location, call it good, then go take a nap. Okay, so I have the fuel line here, hooked up, going down underneath, down by the transmission. Now let's go underneath and check it out. What I did was come through underneath over by the transmission, use this little clippy dippy here, and then ran it straight back. So you can see I did use the split loom over the line. That's just for some little added protection. And then I'm going to run this thing straight back along the frame rail. And this is the approximate location of the old fuel filter. So this will probably run up here. I did run it over the top of this evap line here. So this will all be secured later, but just kind of wanted to show you the routing. Okay, so I did run that loomed and protected all the way back to the fuel tank. So my plan now is to just cut where I want to put the fuel pump and filter. I'll just cut that section out, but it's ran all the way from the front to the back now, so that's completed. I'm going to do the same thing now with the power wire. I'm going to put that in the other roll of loom that I have, and then I'm going to run it basically the same way all the way back. And then when I decide where I'm going to put I'll do the same thing, cut it off, and then terminate everything, and should be decent. So this, I'm going to have to find a decent spot where the pump is mounted below the tank, or at least at the bottom of the tank. But I'm going to shoot for below the tank. That way the pressure from inside the tank will push the fuel out, because this pump isn't really designed to pull fuel out. So I want to mount it below the tank. So that might be a little bit of a trick, but let's get started on that. Okay, so I'm starting to get a little more ambitious here with this fuel pump wiring. My original fuel pump relay was right here, so I'm going to tap into some of that wiring. The thought for this was, instead of going from the battery back to the relay and then back to the fuel pump, and then having the ground going all the way back, and then having the relay in kind of a crappy location back there somewhere underneath the truck, I'm going to put everything right here. We'll go from the battery to the relay, and then just have a positive and negative going back. Then I don't have to worry about the additional run coming from the relay back and then having the relay in a crappy location. I was originally going to run the relay off of the wire harness here. Now I'm changing that. It's all going to be up here with the factory fuse box. A couple of reasons that I'm deciding to do that. One being the mounting location of the relay. Two, as I said before, the additional run that it would have to make. The other reason is, if it's powered off of that harness in the back, like I originally said, it's going to be running through two relays then. So it's just like another point of failure, something else that could go wrong. So I want to eliminate the second relay and just run one relay for the fuel pump, instead of basically relay activating a relay that's activating the fuel pump. Okay, so looking at the back side of the box here, this is my fuel pump relay trigger, and this is actually the ground for the relay. So it's a positive trigger, and then I converted this red wire to a ground. Originally the Ranger has a negative ground trigger, so this was a positive, and then it has a negative ground for the fuel pump activation. So I had to switch this from a positive to a negative in order to work with the positive trigger. So either way, that should still activate the coil. So I'm going to snip these off, and then I'm going to use these to activate the new relay. I thought about going into this location here and using this wire. This is for the heater blower motor, and I'm not using that anymore. Nice location open for a relay right here. Decided against this. It would have been kind of sweet, but because it's fused and it has a relay location, but I didn't really want to go converting these wires to activate this relay and then go through a relay to a 10 gauge to a butt connector to an 8 gauge. I didn't really want to do that extra termination and extra connection, so I'm going to avoid that whole thing and then just run the wires right to the relay. Okay, so I got all this loomed now. I have positive loom going to the relay. This is going to be the negative going to the pump. This was in that larger loom section that had both the wires in it. So both of the wires do go back inside of this loom all the way to the pump, but they start right here where that little taped Y is. I have the fuel pump relay right here, and then these two wires come back down around. One goes up to the front right here, and then one comes back down and around to that Y where the positive and negative meet, and then they go back to the pump. It's going to be a little bit hard to see here, but this is where the relay is. So when I put this box back on, I'm just going to make sure that I swing this relay down and around this support bracket over here to make sure that goes around the back side of that. Then I can clip these this box on. That'll clip down into place. Then I'll just make sure that that relay is tucked away back there. And now it should be completely out of the way. All of the wire is loomed, protected. That's about it. Okay, so I got the tank starting to go back in now. Filler neck is up and wrapped around. Just for an idea of how I'm doing the fittings, I just have a 3/8 line coming back to this 5/16 fitting for the return. Then I just repurposed one of my evap fittings for this here. And then I have a 3/8 line going out, and that'll go to the pump. This is plugged back in like normal now. So that's how that's looking. Okay, so I got the straps for the tank bolts I need, my wrench. Now let's get in there and get this thing in. Alright guys, what is up? Going to the store right now. I gotta pick up a couple more hose clamps, and I also have a fitting that's coming in the mail today. So can you believe that both of the fittings that I bought for this fuel pump got messed up in shipping? One got sent like 5 houses down the street, so that one wasn't too bad. I got it after like a couple days. And then the other one was completely lost in the mail, and I didn't even realize it. So I contacted the company. They sent another one out. It should be here today, probably within the hour. Running to the hardware store now, so when I get the fitting, I can just put everything back in. Getting pretty close to done. I decided to call it quits last night and go to a movie with the wife. First time in almost a year that we were able to do anything alone together since the baby was born. So took that opportunity. It's 3 kids and a brand new baby. It can be a little bit challenging sometimes to squeeze a date night in. Put the truck off for a little bit, but we're gonna finish it up today. All right guys, so we're underneath. I did skip ahead a few steps here, but this is pretty much all done now. I ended up just mounting the fuel pump using the old factory Ranger fuel filter mounting point. This clip was actually mounted over in this position over here, but I moved it back and use the same mounting point right to the rail. So that goes over to the filter regulator and right up to the front. So this loom back here is actually the wiring that comes over to the pump. You can kind of see it up in there. Or here's the supply for the fuel pump, and this is the return line actually coming back from the regulator. So here are the supply lines. Supply line on the top going up to the fuel rail, and the bottom one is the wiring. Use that clip right there to go up over the top of the transmission to the fuel rail. And that's about it. Okay, so I didn't actually test this yet. I didn't even test the relay function when I hooked it all up. So normally I'll test everything and then button it back up. I didn't. So I'm going to turn the key, and then we should hear the fuel pump prime for 2 seconds if I did it the right way. So let's try that. There you go. We have a prime. So that seems like it's working pretty well. Alright guys, so that is about it for the fuel system. All I gotta do now is put my crossover pipe back on and clean up that water that I spilt. I forgot to hook up the steam vent tubes on both sides when I started to fill it with water again. So I'm gonna get busy, put the crossover pipe back on, clean up my mess, and then next video we'll start this thing and go for a drive. Thanks for watching, have a good one.